I should probably change my background. Let me do that.
It's a very cool one.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Feel free to keep it.
It's the morel mushrooms that are in season. Like right now, you can only find them a certain time of year. And,
I love it.
Super tasty. So
I love it. My family used to go hunting for morels when I was a little girl, so
yes.
I know exactly what those are. All right. So as new people are coming on, feel free to turn your camera on. We want to do some introductions here real quick. Welcome everybody. I'm Candy from local Tbilisi. We are a co-work, co-live. We just started up here in Tbilisi, Georgia, the country, not the state, for those of you that might not be familiar. So with our doors closed, we're trying to keep the community engaged and putting together some virtual events and activities, some fun stuff, hopefully some professional development. Hopefully you'll get a little bit out of this and take something back and make your businesses amazing, because I'm super excited about learning about everyone's businesses and what's going on in your lives. So having said that, I would like you, I'll just call out names if that's probably the easiest way. Like you to pop on your video and say hi, tell us where you're from, and tell us why you're here today. Marley, go for it.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Marley. I'm from the United States, but I am residing in Tbilisi. Socially distanced from Candy, but I miss you. Hi from far away. I'm here to see what I can learn about promoting myself as a freelancer and focusing in on a niche, I suppose. I'm kind of all over the place right now, so I want to see if maybe this will help me focus my attention on something.
Fabulous. Tamta.
Hi everyone, I'm local here. I'm from Tbilisi and I work as a social media manager for local Tbilisi.
And we love her.
Sorry?
I said, and we love you.
Oh, and I love you too. And well, I'm happy to be part of this community, and well, I want to grow more professionally, so I'm thinking that all these trainings and Skillshare events are going to help me achieve that, because I'm just now starting to build myself professionally.
Fabulous. Carolina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Carolina. I'm originally from Poland, although I haven't been living there for over almost 10 years now. I now live in Tbilisi and I work in the tourism industry. I'm just interested in how to present myself publicly and how to advertise for myself. Sorry, that was my cat. Yeah, in a better way. What to do so people recognize me, recognize my work, connect the dots, and know what I have done, what I haven't done.
Great. Welcome, Carolina. I'm going to butcher some of these names, so I'm going to apologize in advance. Salome Adashvili. We have a couple of Salomes.
Hello.
Sorry.
Hello. So I'm from Georgia, Tbilisi, and personal branding became such kind of a challenging subject for me, and I was really happy to find such opportunity to join you and just to learn something new and exploring myself as well. Beautiful. So I'm really happy to be here.
Welcome. And the other Salome.
Yes. Hi, I'm from Tbilisi too. I work as a B2B relation manager, and I am here now because I want to learn something new about myself and to see myself in different way.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Bianca.
Hi. So I'm Bianca. I'm from South Africa, but living in Tbilisi for the last 5 months. I'm a virtual assistant. but I've hit some roadblocks recently, partly due to limiting beliefs, the mindset issues that I need to get over. So I've been working on that, and I want to, while I'm working on that, work on my brand at the same time.
Great. Duranda? No? Ketavan? Nani? Katarina? Who else? Anyone else that hasn't introduced themselves? If you want to introduce yourself, just unmute and pop on. Let us know who you are and where you're currently at.
Hello, Nani.
Nani, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Nani from Georgia, Tbilisi. I'm working as a social media manager, and today I'm here because I want to know more about personal branding, and I can't wait to hear more about it.
Beautiful. And then Katarzyna, I think maybe popped on.
Yes, hi. So my name is Katarzyna. I'm Polish, but I'm based in Tbilisi now. I work as a researcher and part-time academic, let's say. So I'm really interested to learn, if this personal branding can really apply to, so let's say experts, right? People who have to be present in the social media. So really curious about, learning more.
Beautiful. Anyone else that hasn't introduced themselves that would like to introduce themselves? Where are you currently and why are you joining us today?
Hello.
Hello.
I am Bessariani from Tbilisi, Georgia, and I'm a business student. I studied Calcutta University, and I am 20 years old, and I work in network marketing industry. And it's very important to have face-to-face communication. It's very important to have your image and personal brand. So I'm here for this reason, and I hope that I will learn something new from your presentation and webinar, and wish you all the best.
Beautiful, beautiful. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm David from Georgia. I'm living in Tbilisi. I'm communication manager and I also take some lectures at the universities as a lecturer. I'm also taking some online lessons. So personal branding is what I really need to build some connections, to stand out from the crowd and build more confidence and so on. So that's why I'm here, and I'm looking forward to listen to you.
Beautiful. Anyone else want to do a quick introduction? Okay.
Hello, everybody. My name is Georgi. I'm from Tbilisi, Georgia, working in the field of education and management, basically. I think that personal branding is very important in order to compete on the highest level, especially when you are in the field of education or whatever field you are operating in. And I also think that in Georgia, personal branding is not that developed, and at some point it's underestimated. So I'm just looking forward to listen to you, and yeah, good luck.
Beautiful. Anyone else would like to introduce themselves? All right. So I am going to go over a couple of technicalities, I guess, to start with. First of all, as Kelly is speaking and doing the presentation, if you could just please make sure that you're muted, just simply so that the background noise allows us to actually better hear Kelly when she's speaking. If you have questions, feel free to post them in the chat box. There will be intermittent areas throughout where we will stop and maybe ask that everybody show themselves again and engage in a little bit of conversation as this progresses. So we are being recorded. just so everyone is aware of that. We'll post that up with Kelly's permission, of course. We'll post that up following this, as well as some additional notes and that sort of thing to help you guys with a Clip Notes kind of version of everything. So I'm super, super excited to have Kelly here. She's coming to us from Portland, Oregon. And am I right that it's like super early in the morning there?
Yeah, 7 a.m.
Okay.
Not too early, but early for some people.
For Georgians, it's definitely early. Georgians
Okay.
tend to be late night and late morning people. So it's certainly early for us around here. Kelly comes to us from Canvas Consulting Group, and she launched, I think, about 18 months ago, if I remember correctly, and made 6 figures in her first year, which is phenomenal. I think that is amazing. Congratulations to you, Kelly, on that. That's a huge win. So I'm excited to hear her tips and her wisdom and see what we can all learn from Kelly about our own personal branding. And so without further ado, Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to mute myself and turn my video off, but let me know if you need anything.
Okay, appreciate you. Thank you for having me. It's so great to meet everyone. And I love that we got to do a round of introductions. I think that's so rare when we have sessions like this. So that was fantastic. It was great to hear from all of you. And a perfect segue, because it was really interesting and I loved all the shares, because a personal brand can mean many different things. And I think that really speaks to what we heard. So a few things that I made notes on is, you're here to gain more confidence, more connections, promote and present your business, to learn and explore, learn something new about yourself, and grow professionally. So a personal brand can absolutely address all those things. And at first I want to talk about the more common correlations when it comes to what a personal brand is. So, because what we're going to focus on today is something very specific, and I'll say more personal and a level deeper than what a lot of people think about. But what I loved hearing is, I think a lot of us are on the same page, which is great. So I hope this workshop is valuable. It is my first time doing this in a group setting, so very open to feedback. If you wanted to message me directly or share that with Candy, because I'd be so grateful for any of your feedback, good, bad, neutral, because that's obviously helpful in working on a personal brand of like what's connecting and what's not. So when it comes to a personal brand, just as we speak about the variety of ways we can interpret that, one is people think about celebrities. So one that might come to mind, really the first huge influencer and create a personal brand for herself out of nothing is Kim Kardashian. So people might think, I need to be an influencer. I need to have this amazing social media presence to have a strong personal brand. I don't agree with that. Another way to interpret a personal brand is about personality. So maybe it's a tone, it's a voice, it's a way of being. So some of you might be familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, who has a major media conglomerate here in the US. He's very active on social media. He's a bit aggressive and can be just like really in your face. So he obviously has a very strong personal brand. Another way to think about personal brand is style. So when Candy and I popped on, she's like, oh, you look nice. I was like, oh, thanks. Well, for me, polka dots are part of my personal brand. When I was in the corporate world, I would probably wear polka dots twice a week. And it just became like this thing that people would see me in, be like, polka dots meant correlation to Kelly. Also, I'm very super into lipstick. And even though it's 7 in the morning, I'm like, I have to put on my color because it gives me a little extra energy, a little extra, jump in my step. And that has become part of who I am, in addition to these bangs. So this is the longest relationship I've ever had. I've had bangs for almost 15 years. I'll likely get buried with them. And so it can be a style. And then also when we think about businesses and brands out there in the world, it can also be a logo, a color palette, a font. So it's how you visually present yourself and your business, or obviously the brands out there in the world. So are there any others that are coming to mind that maybe I didn't address as you kind of see as an interpretation of what a personal brand, you know, means to you? Would anyone like to share?
Could your personal brand be partly just your mood as well?
Yes, I love that. Absolutely, 100%. And that's one thing that we're going to talk about today is energy and how you show up to people. 100%. Thank you. Love that contribution.
Nicole,
And yes, Nicole.
Yeah, Nicole
Oh,
said
sorry.
style of speech. I forgot. You can see the chat box now.
I can see the chat box now. Yes. Like you can see it. Like, so I'm a fast talker. I naturally talk fast because I get energized. I'm excited. I can sometimes be nervous, but like right now I'm just genuinely excited. So I have to consciously be mindful of, I should have this giant Post-it on my computer to, you know, slow down. And even just the words we use, language. And I also, which we'll get to about who I am in my work now, but I'm also a career coach in addition to a personal brand consultant. So I write resumes, so I'm very mindful of the words I select for people, and we talk about who they are in their personal brand. And then also when I do interview coaching, to your point, Nicole, 100% about the style of like how you speak, how you articulate, what your story is, how you answer questions, all of those things, 100%. Okay, amazing. Well, so knowing that it's very, very, I guess, like wide as far as how we can interpret a personal brand, what I'm excited to chat you through is where we start first. So a lot of those things that we just mentioned are external expressions of what a personal brand is. So something that we are out in the world or what other people see of us out in the world. And what I'm excited to chat about first is the internal. So it's the who we are, what makes us who we are, how do we tick, how do we engage, how do we connect, and how do we service our clients from that inner truth. And all those things can then correlate to how we present ourselves on social media, how we present ourselves on LinkedIn, or how we show up in a meeting, or how do we casually make a connection, and even how do we present ourselves and engage in a video kind of session like this. So this is a quote I love from a famous Chinese philosopher. At the center of your being, you have the answer. You know who you are, and you know what you want. And it's really those two things. So we have to be authentic to who we are, and then we have to also be authentic to what we want. And that's how we create really powerful personal brands, really powerful businesses, and meaningful connections built on that. So for today, we're going to be thinking about your reputation, your calling card, how you show up, and what you want to be known for. So that's what I focus on as a personal brand consultant and in my work as a coach. And the reason these things are important is it brings clarity and consistency to how you interact with the world in your work and in life. It creates a more memorable and meaningful experience, opening up new opportunities and deeper connections. And it's really I think one of the most important things, especially as maybe an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, or if you're a job seeker, for example, it really helps you stand out and get noticed and be remembered, because as we all know, it's really cluttered out there. There's a lot of noise in the world. So being true to who you are, and I'll say, you know, shining brightly and confidently, that gives us an opportunity to really embrace our personal brand and use it to our advantage. Now, all of that sounds like maybe easy, just, you know, be who you are, but we're complex individuals, and there's a lot of layers to who we are and how we operate and how we show up every day. So we're going to have some workshop, actual mini sessions where I'll give you prompts, and we'll have a minute or two. I'd love for you to like capture some notes. So if you tend to take notes on a notepad, grab a piece of paper or a notepad, or if you use your computer, that's great too, because we will have some opportunity to do some reflecting. And one thing that I want to also acknowledge about a personal brand is that it's powerful, but at the same time, it's extremely delicate. So this is a famous American tycoon. His quote says, "It takes 20 years to build a reputation, and in 5 minutes you can ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently." So this speaks to the fact that, especially in business, is, you know, we don't give brands, even as a consumer, when we think about where we're giving our money and how much we're spending, you know, we don't have to be injured, I'll say, or discredited more than once to likely choose another brand. Or even when you think about restaurants and how you have a bad experience once, will you go back there? Will you recommend it to a friend or family member? Likely not. So personal brand is very similar. So you can't fake it. It's really hard to lie about it, and you can't really change it regularly, because if you do, people will absolutely take notice. They might not say anything, but they will absolutely take note. So just real quickly of like a little bit more about me, and thank you again, Candy, for the introduction, and why we're here today, and what makes me qualified to have this conversation with you is I spent 15 to 16 years in marketing and advertising. So I understand branding. I was a client service executive, an account director, working at big agencies and small agencies all over the US. I've worked with huge brands in the market. I've supported over 24 brands in the course of my career. I've won, I believe it was 18 industry awards, and a lot of them are more focused in the US. Some have more a global presence. And in my time, I've managed over $90 million of media. So I understand how to build awareness, change perceptions, drive purchase intent, and consideration. And these are just a sampling of the brands that I've worked on. The most recent one being LinkedIn. So as consumers and individuals in the world, it's so important to have a LinkedIn profile where you can make connections from a business perspective, maybe a future client. You can do prospecting and lead generation, or if you're in the corporate world, as a job seeker, LinkedIn is a great platform to apply for jobs, but also for hiring managers and recruiters to find you. And what was really cool about my last agency experience 2 years ago was a B2B marketing agency in London, and they were supporting LinkedIn Talent Solutions. So LinkedIn Talent Solutions is a B2B product for LinkedIn, and actually generates 65% of their revenue. And those are all the tools that give hiring managers more data and more information. And as we know, with especially the unemployment and the rise around the world, especially I'm more closer to the numbers here in the US, more and more people are spending time on LinkedIn than ever before, both from a job seeker, and then people are working from home and kind of sharing what's coming up for them as they transition to a work from home balance. And posts are becoming more personal, talking about their challenges, you know, homeschooling and taking care of families and all those things. So LinkedIn is a great place to be. But I'll just mention that I understand the front end and the back end. And as much as I fell in love with marketing early in my career, I got an internship my senior year of university. I ultimately fell out of love with marketing. I realized 4 years ago, I didn't want my boss's job. And when that happens, it can be very concerning. You know, what do I want to do next? I'm not really sure. Like I live to work, at least I did for a long time. Like my work was so tied up into my personal identity and my self-worth, and I didn't know what to do next. And fortunately, when I was at this agency with LinkedIn, I applied for a program called Remote Year. Some of you might be familiar with it. And I was able to travel the world for a year while working on LinkedIn globally. And I would love to, that program gave me kind of like the space to figure out what I want to do next. And in traveling with that group in that program, I organically started helping people with their LinkedIn profiles and then resume writing. And through the encouragement of my network, they basically said, like, this is where you shine. Like, you light up when you talk about this stuff. This is what you should be doing. And I'll just say, for anyone that's thinking about a career transition, or they're not sure what their next move is definitely lean on your network. And actually this exercise that we'll jump to shortly is a great eye-opening exercise to learn what you're great at and what your opportunities are, but more importantly, what is the perception of your strengths and weaknesses. So through the encouragement of my network, I created my own business as a career coach and personal brand consultant. And like Candy said, within 18 months, I have a successful, sustainable business. I got my start on Upwork. I have a love-hate relationship with Upwork, if anyone's familiar with the platform. In 9 months, I was top rated, which is really hard to do. It's a highly competitive marketplace. I have since lost that rating. And just as a fun fact not so fun actually, a fact for anyone that's on Upwork, if you have contracts open for longer than 30 days with no activity, it actually hurts your score, which they don't tell you, they don't communicate that. So just a little tip if you are on Upwork and working towards that top rated score as well. So I've serviced clients all over the world, and I have a really strong referral rate, 20%. And I wanted to share just these 2 quick testimonials. And this isn't about, I'm not really good at talking about myself, which is ironic, obviously. But sharing these testimonials actually feels a little vulnerable and awkward, because when people offer to give me a referral or recommendation, I of course take them up on it, but I'm not great at asking for that referral recommendation, which it's something I'm working on now. And I'd always encourage you to ask for that feedback, ask for that referral, ask for that recommendation, because if you're building your business, people singing your praises and speaking on your behalf makes all the difference. But the reason why I highlighted these 2 is to really talk about a personal brand and why it's so important. So as a resume writer and profile optimizer, a big part of what I do is writing. And obviously, like, I have a process to do that. So my process is part of my personal brand. How do I discover what is important to a client? How do they want to celebrate who they are? How do I select the different language and tone? How I speak? So Nicole, great question or comment earlier, style of speech. The clarity of communication can be so important. And this first one here also talks about addressing notes quickly. So I'm really responsive when a client emails me. I want to make sure they know that I'm on it. They don't need to know how busy I am, how many clients I'm working on. None of that matters. How I present myself to them, and every interaction is business critical. The other one I wanted to include here is from Andrew, and he speaks about patience and listening, and those things are intangible. They're not things that I would talk about on my website. There's not things that I would talk about on my LinkedIn profile. And I don't even use them when I'm kind of like selling my skills and I'm pitching, sharing a proposal, and I'm on a discovery call or a free consultation. But those are things that clients picked up about me and my process and how I engage with them. And that is very much a part of my personal brand and what makes me a successful coach and solopreneur. So there's definitely going to be some, hopefully it doesn't feel like I'm repeating myself, because there's going to be a lot of themes here about, I think, the hard skills, the soft skills, those tangibles and those intangibles, about who we are and like what makes our personal brand. So with that, I would love to kind of address that. This workshop is, like I think I mentioned, the first I'm doing in a group setting. So really excited for the discussion, the engagement, and super open to feedback. I've broken it up into 3 parts. And this is kind of like a light version of what I typically do in my coaching sessions. So typically these are 90-minute one-on-one sessions that are broken up over a number of weeks, and we really dive deep and kind of like unpack all sorts of basically all of these territories. So we're going to do little mini light exercises where I'm going to give you an opportunity to kind of like reflect and think about who you are, what's important to you, how you want to show up for yourself, and also or potentially your clients. There's 2 sections that we're not covering today. One of them is purpose, which is also very abstract. So I figured that was tough to do in our session together. And then also the content strategy, because content strategy is so specific to an individual business and individual person. You'll see some examples of LinkedIn profiles that I've optimized, so you can kind of get a sense of how to visualize, a personal brand, especially in that context. Like I said, LinkedIn is so important. But for the sake of today, we're going to cover these topics of strengths and weaknesses, values and passions, and then of course, like making your impact, which is the beginning of how to build your personal brand. So with that, I would love for everyone to grab their pen, paper, notebook. maybe if they're on a Mac computer, their notepad, or even a Google Doc, and excited to dive in. Before we jump, is there any questions? I think I maybe missed one in the chat. Anything that we want to discuss or go to before we start our first exercise?
There was the one question from Nicole about protecting your reputation. Says, I would love any tips for protecting your reputation when it's out of your control. For example, you consult through a third party and the third party cuts your contract unexpected to both you and the company you're working with. If you have no contact internally, how do you balance the public statements with not drawing attention, with trying to protect your reputation?
Interesting. That's such a great, unique question. So curious, Nicole, and this is like such a specific example, curious how, because knowing that there's a lot of third parties involved, so a lot of things are kind of happening behind the scenes, I'd be curious to know like what actually was shared publicly, where, and then I could brainstorm with you even separately. So I don't know if maybe we could have like, I'm happy to have a one-on-one with you and chat through that, since it's such a unique case. I will say, so for example, I can use at least Upwork, since a lot of us might be familiar with that. And I've gotten a lot of great reviews and mostly 5 stars, but there's been 2 cases where it was a 4 something. And someone said like timeliness or responsiveness was a 4. And then also, I'm forgetting what the other one was, but that it was heartbreaking for me because like I just mentioned in one of the reviews, the timeliness and the responsiveness was so important to me. And this is actually where we're going to jump to, which is a perfect segue to sometimes perception is reality. And in your situation, that's so tough because it was, like you said, 100% outside of your control. And you don't necessarily have a means to connect with that person. Because I would say when you get feedback or your personal brand has been tarnished in some way, one thing to do is like definitely to reach out to that person, really understand like what the disconnect was. And it really just becomes a lesson. In your situation where it was outside of your control and you might not have a means like make communication with them, unfortunately, the only thing you can do is continue to show up consistently as you know to do, and be the exceptional talent that you are. And then you're just going to reinforce that over time. And then that just becomes, something kind of like distant in the past. So hopefully that's helpful for now. But like I said, happy to have a one-on-one chat with you. So this whole concept of perception is reality, and this comes up a lot in advertising and marketing, so this might be familiar to a lot of you, but I wanted to share 2 quick stories with you. So one is a personal one. So as I was traveling for remote year, I was traveling with 38 individuals from all over the world. 3 months in, I was planning to go to Italy, and we were currently staying in Budapest, and the night before was my birthday. So who doesn't like to go out for a drink on their birthday? So I obviously had my fair share. It was out really late, and I almost missed my flight. I had 4 people involved in getting me on that plane in time between my 2 roommates and the 2 people I was traveling with. And what's really unfortunate is I think I was turning 30, I think I was turning 36. So in 36 years, I had never missed a flight. No one had ever had to worry about me getting from home to the airport in time. And now all of a sudden, 4 people were directly impacted, woken up at a crazy hour in the morning. And then 38 people in my group was involved in understanding like this, this funny story and basically making fun of me for almost not missing this flight. So in an instant, by missing my alarm, by not waking up on time, not setting my alarm properly, and obviously not getting up on time, like my personal brand was impacted because I was now the girl that everyone in that group had to worry about. Like, is she gonna catch the flight? Is she gonna get to this event on time? And I had to spend the year like taking the joke, but also rebuilding like this trust factor. So that's a small personal example, and some of you might be able to relate to that. Another is for any of you that are entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, that when you're thinking about how you work with clients and in your rates, I will say like building my cost structure was one of the hardest things. And I even still sometimes struggle with it, like how to charge the right amount. And it comes up a lot that like, well, this is really expensive, or this is premium because I don't think I'm I don't think I'm crazy expensive by any means, but I do say I'm on the higher end as it relates to resume writing, because my process is very personal, custom, and highly collaborative, no limit on revisions. But really, it's like you're paying for my 15 to 16 years of branding and marketing experience. And I want to understand who you are, so that personal storytelling, where a lot of resume writers are very formulaic. A lot of resume writers don't even talk to their clients. There's no real discovery session. It's more of an optimization of the layout and the content. And so my perception when I meet certain people is that I'm expensive, and that's their reality. And I totally respect that. And especially at a time like now, like, people are more mindful than ever of their budgets, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I should adjust my pricing. So those are just like two little quick examples that are personal to me that I wanted to share with you of how perception can ultimately be reality. And when it comes in the world of client testimonials and feedback, like, because to your point, like, Nicole, that's out there and public. Unfortunately, that's what people have to read. And so showing up consistently, taking great care of your customers, and we'll talk about that today, that makes a big difference. So there's the goal here is to narrow that gap between perception and reality, and we want them to be one and the same, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the case 100% of the time. So what I'd like to do is, so this next exercise will be part reflection, and then actually, I don't want to say homework, but if you're intrigued by this process and you want to complete it, a big part of this part one, and discussing and understanding your strengths and weaknesses, is asking for feedback. So when I do this workshop in my coaching practice, I ask clients to seek feedback from 5 people. So, and 3 of them should be in a work-related setting or work-related environment, whether it's a previous coworker, maybe a current client or past client, because you really want to understand that feedback. And the goal here is, like I said, to understand any gaps, any disconnects between your strengths and weaknesses as you see them, and then as others see them. So, and you'll want to do this, you can do this in person, obviously not right now, actually, I'll correct myself. You can do this through email, through social media, through a Zoom chat, and you'll appreciate, it might be hard. You might feel uncomfortable asking for feedback, and they might also feel uncomfortable sharing that feedback. But I'll say this, this is valuable, and you want them to know that you won't take anything that they say personally. You really want to better understand your opportunities as it comes to being an individual and a professional, and that's truly a valuable constructive critique. You can promise them that you won't take offense to their answers and truly mean it, because this feedback is so valuable in understanding how you show up in the world. So with that, I would love for us to take even just 1 minute, and I have a little timer ready to kind of like read this list and just kind of like digest it really. And actually, I'm actually going to pause on the timer just yet, because I want to actually share an example that I think will be really helpful before we jump into the exercise. And I can actually go back to this slide when we jump to that brainstorm, because this is just a list of thought starters, and the who you are is might not be here, and that's okay. That's actually beautiful. So don't let this list limit you. But first, let's jump to this example of a client I coached, and then I'll come back to this list for the quick exercise. So I'd love for you to meet Conrad. So he was actually a marketer here in the US, which I found super fascinating because this changed my perception. So if you're in marketing, I had this false belief that if you're in marketing, you understand branding and you understand your personal brand. And that was unfair of me. That was just such a broad assumption, and you should never assume. And what's really interesting is Conrad found me on LinkedIn. He organically sent me a message and said, "Hey, I'd love to work with you and better understand my personal brand." And in speaking with him, I kind of asked him, what are you experiencing? What challenges or, issues are you solving for, so I can make sure that I'm the right fit for you. Because I'm very transparent about, you know, my skill set, how I support clients, and if there's a match, and if there's not, like I love referring, you know, other coaches or partners to make sure that that person is getting the most value out of their time and resources. And in this case, Conrad was mentioning, he was saying he was being overlooked for a promotion. His boss was reviewing his proposals, but not really. He was like, it seemed like the boss was being really agreeable in the room, but then nothing would come of the follow through and the feedback and approval. And he was also in a toxic work environment. So he had a really hard time building influence and consensus because everyone was really out for themselves. Like there was definitely a fear-based culture. So there's a lot of things getting in his way. He wasn't able to progress and move up to the director level that he wanted. He didn't necessarily have an advocate or consistency in his boss, and he wasn't able to make inroads with his peers and really move his projects through. So based on what he shared and what I knew at the time, I actually encouraged him to work with an executive coach, especially knowing that he wanted to move up in his career. And what was really fascinating is he had the confidence to say, no, I really want to work my personal brand. I believe that that's what it is. And this was also earlier in my business where I hadn't really had this offering yet. I was really focused on content strategy as it relates to resumes and LinkedIn profiles and interview prep as specific to a job search. So Conrad was the first person where I actually created this workshop for, and I have him to thank for that, because I actually love this aspect of what I do and how I work with clients, and I'm very excited to do more of it, which is why when Candy reached out and said, hey, how about this? I'm like, yes, this is amazing. So I've done this a few times. Conrad was the first, and I wanted to share with you what we discovered through this exercise of strengths and weaknesses. So what we did is we obviously had him go through, like I said, that same exercise of him self-evaluating what he thought he was, 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses. And then he asked a friend the same 3, you know, tell me 3 strengths, tell me 3 opportunities. And then he asked 3 coworkers. So I can appreciate this is a bit of an eye chart, and I apologize I didn't do any of this in animations, because animations are super cool, and I respect anyone that can do those really well. I am not that person, but that is on my things of lists to learn and understand. But what I wanted to highlight for you is there's a lot of disconnects happening here. So I should say too that he has over 20 years of experience. He's in his 40s. He had been in his company. He was a contractor first and then hired full time. So he knows his stuff. Like he knows marketing. But what was fascinating about this process is you can see that Conrad saw himself as being reliable, creative, and influential. Those were his top 3 strengths that he saw for himself. And then he also recognized that he was unorganized, indecisive, and honest. He felt like he was too honest. So too honest and too generous is something that he mentioned to me also. And what you'll see here, so let's focus on the strengths first, is he saw himself as reliable. No one else saw that. In fact, people saw him as unresponsive and unorganized and inconsistent. I mean, like for us to see this on paper, it's how he's basically operating one way, but believing he is the other. So that was a huge thing that we had to work through and overcome as far as his personal brand in the work environment. The other thing you'll see here is he really wanted to be known as being creative and influential. And no one saw this. No one saw those things. What they did see is you'll see passionate came up twice. And I also color coded enthusiastic because I think that kind of like relates to energy and passion and fervor for something. So you'll see in the strengths, which you would think would be a more 1-to-1 ratio. So the things that you're great at, you do more often, and then people see them and appreciate those of you. That's not necessarily the case. So we had a big gap of, no one saw him as being creative and influential. People saw him as being passionate, but that's not something he wanted to be known for. And then people actually saw him as being unorganized, unresponsive, inconsistent, this lack of follow through. And that's huge, obviously, in the professional world. You can't really, be successful in any capacity if people don't trust you. And all of these things really like degrade trust. And the last one I'll just point out is honest, is he saw that as a weakness, being too honest and too generous also. But then one of his coworkers really appreciated that about him, that he was an honest and transparent person. So the main objective here is at least 3 major disconnects of what's happening, of how Conrad was presenting himself, the ways he was being, and then also what people were seeing and recognizing him for. So we had a lot of work to do. So I totally appreciate that our time together here, we won't have a chance to kind of like highlight the feedback from others, but I highly encourage this exercise. I think it would be great for you to do that. So what I would love is for us to just take, going back to this list, kind of just taking 2 minutes to really think about your top 3 strengths, what you're exceptional at, and even think about it as those strengths as how you set yourself apart from your peers. So if you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, how do you set yourself apart from your competition? If you're in the corporate world and you're maybe thinking about getting a new job, like what sets you apart from other candidates? So think about 3 strengths. And then I'd love for you to also start thinking about those 3 weaknesses or opportunities. What are your things that you need to work on, maybe feedback you've gotten from a peer or a manager before, or from a client, because we want to understand what those gaps are. And I'll say those gaps, where those disconnects are, become your blind spots. So we want to basically shine a light on those blind spots, so we're aware of those, and then we can create an action plan again to close those gaps and close those disconnect. So I'm just going to set the timer. I'd love to just take 2 minutes. If you could write down and capture those strengths and also those opportunity areas. So we'll just do a minute for strengths and a minute for weaknesses. Before I jump, are there any questions so far that you'd like to share with us?
There was a question, I thought. How do you manage your LinkedIn profile when you don't want your colleagues to see that you're starting your own business?
That's a tough one. And to be honest, LinkedIn is a really hard place, because I would actually encourage you to, if you're trying to do a side hustle, like a true side hustle, I would say Facebook or even Instagram are going to be great, because they're going to be more private and less likely for your colleagues to find you. And you can also, you don't have to be private, or you don't have to be public, but because LinkedIn is so public, it's really hard to do both secretly. And LinkedIn does not allow you to have 2 profiles. It's very singular. I will say, when I was freelancing for my old agency, so they hired me more recently to help with freelance recruiting and coaching of their team, I ended up choosing to put it on my profile because I wanted, when I spoke to candidates, I wanted them to know that I had my business, but then I also did this work with this agency. And that felt weird, I have to be honest, because it felt like I was deprioritizing my business in that case. But then also it was an opportunity to, like, one, income, right? Like, we want to pay our bills, but also build connections with people and build that trust. So that was a choice that I made. Hopefully that's helpful. I'll say it is really hard because LinkedIn is public, and it's also very singular. Like, they have a very set template on, obviously, like what you can fill out. So I just hope maybe there's something that you can do publicly that doesn't necessarily injure your reputation or the work that you're currently doing with your current company.
Beautiful. Kelly, that was an excellent example that you gave, by the way. That was so insightful. I know I've kind of done the same thing, just casually, not in an organized manner in the past. It was interesting to see the strengths that other people thought I had that I really never thought about as being strengths. So I agree. It's a fabulous exercise. Are you going to ask us to share?
Yeah, so what I thought we could do is do this quick brainstorm for 2 minutes, and then we can have people share what they think what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then if anyone wants to kind of like report back later, I imagine if that maybe is kind of like silly to ask, but would just love for people to say like if they are absolutely going to do the exercise, and like you said, it's going to be really enlightening about, you'll get credit for things that you maybe hadn't considered, but also shine a light on those blind spots that we're not aware of, because then we'll talk about how this informs the rest of the process and the exercises that we'll go through. So we're building from here, and I know there's a big key part of this like outside feedback that we're not capturing today, but highly encourage that. So with that, let's just take 2 quick minutes to give you a chance to kind of brainstorm what you like your strengths are and what you want to be known for, and then what you think your potential like areas of opportunity and weaknesses are. Sound good? And I'll leave this this list up here for inspiration. Just 30 more seconds. Okay, great. Okay, would anyone like to share anything that came up for them, whether it was a strength or a weakness after kind of like that reflection?
So I did mine, and I feel like passion is a strength and a weakness depending on the day. So I don't know if that's possible or not, but
Yes, it absolutely is. So that's really interesting and insightful. I think that's why this exercise can be so enlightening, because you obviously have an awareness about how it can be seen as a really great thing, but then also how it might be seen as a negative thing. Anyone else like to share? Okay, no worries. We can always jump to the.
Sorry,
Oh,
can
yes,
I see
please.
the list once again?
Oh, yes, the words.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
so it
Are
looks
you
like,
seeing these squiggly lines?
yeah, I'm not sure
I
what
don't
that.
know I have absolutely no idea either. What I might do actually, Candy, just quickly, if anyone just wants to keep sharing, please don't let me stop you. I'm just going to stop sharing and then reshare it. And hopefully, I absolutely have no idea what that is.
Sure, no problem. So out of the poll, 91% of you have agreed that this exercise would be something that you plan to do in the future. So that's exciting. Would love to see your results from that. Carolina says that her positives are driven, passionate, educated, and her negatives are or her weaknesses are aggressive, stubborn, and ruthless.
What great language. So I think that is so fantastic, because language is so important, because there's so much nuance to the words that we use. And I just want to acknowledge you for being really thoughtful and using like powerful language and words to acknowledge like what you're exceptional at, and then some things that you know that you might be seen as. So that's fantastic. Any others?
Don't be shy, guys. Feel free to share. And if you just want to share what you feel your strengths are and not your weaknesses, that's fine too.
That's okay. That's great. We have great share. Thank you both for sharing. Let's go. We can jump to the next exercise. And the squiggly lines disappeared. So here we are, winning. No idea what that was. Like little lightning bolts.
No, me neither, but glad they're gone.
Yes. Okay, cool. Perfect. So what else? So think about these questions, and these ones I'd love for you to kind of jot down. And then you would come back to these questions after you've gone through the exercise completely. So the objective is to understand what strengths does others see in me, and consistently. So like, for example, the Conrad example, like passion was the one that came up the most. And then which ones do you want to be known for? So in his example, he wanted to be known as creative and influential, but no one recognized him for those things. So that's, again, another gap. And then what weaknesses did other people see in me consistently? And then this is so important, which weaknesses will impact my goals and how? So I highly encourage the asking for the feedback and then reflecting on these questions. What strengths and weaknesses came up consistently? And how does that correlate or disconnect to what I want to be known for? And then which weaknesses are going to impact my goals and get in my way? And that's definitely where you need to have a really solid action plan to address those things. And like anything in the world, some things take time. Like you can't change perceptions or change minds right away, but you can thoughtfully do it over time. So part two. Part two is talking about values and passion. So once we discover what's most important to us, that's how we know how we can best serve ourselves and really others. And understanding our values is a way to understand how we tick. So I see values as our internal compass. So this is a way to guide ourselves through our decisions and our actions consciously and subconsciously. So the following exercise will help us identify our top values, how we define them. So we go back to the language. So when Carolina shared her wording, it was so specific, which was beautiful. So how to define them and then determine if you're living in alignment with them. So it's the defining them, the selecting them, the defining them, and then the alignment. How are we living up to those or not in our lives and in our work? So again, not to overwhelm you with word lists, and we'll come back to this too. But again, this is just a collection of words that might connect with you or might not. You might have different values. And so when I think about values, it's what's important to you, what's most important to you more than anything else, and what might be easier for some of you to do. And this is how some clients like to work, is they actually read this list and decide what they're not. Like, nope, I am not direct, I am not charitable. And that's a way to help then kind of like have the ones that you are bubble to the surface. So similarly, I'd love to have, just a few minutes to have you kind of like review this list. What we're going to do is, if you're on a piece of paper, you can draw this, just create a list. You don't necessarily have to draw the chart, but we want to, I'd love for you to understand your top 5 values. And that's really what we're going to spend our time doing today. But then outside of this exercise, I would love for you to further define what that is and what that means for you. So if you're generous, does that mean that you're generous in money, maybe time, resources, or do you add value in your services? So really think about what that means for you as a person or your business, and then alignment. So if I see myself and my value as being generous, generosity, but I'm not showing up in life or in work that way, then maybe I would rate that as a 1 or a 2. So a 1 would indicate that you're not really, using that or acting from that value in your day-to-day actions. And then if it's a 5, so on the high end, that means that you're consistently embodying that value, and others can sense that from you and see that from you consistently. So, and this is obviously, please be honest, like obviously this is, self-reporting scale, but the more honest you are, the more advantageous that is for you and the connections that you're trying to build and potentially rebuild. So I'll just give us 2 minutes again, kind of like looking at this fresh list to think about our top 5 values.
I'm just going to encourage everyone, if you, once you get those, if you want to post those into the chat box, we'd love to see them.
Oh, great. Yeah, I see a few additional shares. These are great. Yes, thank you, Candy. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So 2 minutes. And again, if it's helpful to think about the values that you're not, that might give you clarity too of like what's important to you. So you can do it the reverse way if that's helpful. Okay, 1 minute. Just 30 more seconds. Okay, great. Candy, thanks for posting yours. So I said, do you want to share?
Yeah, my top values: integrity. Collaboration's always been a big one for me. I love collaboration.
Love it. That's great. And loyalty is an interesting one too, because that can also be like, loyalty in what way? Like, how does that show up? Like, how does that become a tangible thing?
I'm excited to go through the rest of the entire exercise and figure it all out.
Would anyone else like to share?
Everyone's so shy and so quiet. There we go. Integrity, control, flexibility, and understanding. Nice. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, this is Marley. My values are growth, strength, honesty, respect, and accountability.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. More great shares in the chat box. Integrity, control, flexibility, and understanding, dependability, empathy, optimism, respect, sincerity. balance, growth, sincerity, reliability, loyalty, and faith. Ambition, courage, optimism, perfection, teamwork.
Carolina, you make me laugh.
Yeah, because since you did the work, thank you. That was fast. Would you be open to sharing and just talking through that, so everyone can kind of like hear through your thought process? I think that'd be really valuable.
Oh, no problem. Shyness is not something that I have to deal with.
Okay, great.
That's not one of my disadvantages. No, this is really great list. Thank you so much for posting it. It just like really nails the vocabulary that you need to address your strong and weak points. There is like, so I listed here things that some of them I already naturally have, some of them I'm working on to get. I always wanted to be somebody recognized for being calm, keeping cool head under stress, which I'm not. That if you ask my peers for a feedback, you will get like -1 point for that. So that I gave myself 2, but because I'm working on it. Otherwise, yes, achievement, this is very important for me. And achievement for me means being recognized for what you do, because you may do a lot and people will still ignore you. They will never notice how much you have done, and prioritize people who achieved less than you. So in the great scheme of things, it doesn't matter in regards to achievement how far you think you got. It matters what other people think. You might be a genius, but unrecognized genius is not really, it's just unrecognized genius. Then ambition. And for me, ambition isn't really about always, getting a better position, a job, getting a higher salary. It's more about wanting to do better, to improve, to see how far you can push yourself, to see if you can learn new things, if you can challenge yourself, if you can do something radical or change yourself in a way that you never thought you would. And that's something I'm really good at. So that's like, then bravery, that's just like pushing forward. It's like, it's not even, about being a soldier or a firefighter. I think a lot of people don't understand how brave they are. Like, bravery can be everything. Starting your career when you're 18, moving out of your parents' home when you are 16, going abroad when you're 20. People do a lot of brave things, and they don't get enough credit for that. And then loyalty, and that is like my key value. That's something that probably is the most important among my values. No matter what, you should stick to people, to ideas. They may change while you evolve. There is a lot of ideas that I left behind as I grew as a person. But until you're not sure that you outgrew them or that you were mistaken, you should stick to them and you should defend them. And you should be loyal to people, loyal to your values. You should never betray them. Sorry, that was a bit long, and you still can hear my cat playing now.
Didn't actually. That was beautiful, because what I loved is like you said, bravery is a great word because there's so much room for interpretation there. And I agree, a lot of people don't give themselves credit for how brave they are. So that's fantastic. And I also love what was surprising about this for me is loyalty, especially when I was thinking about it. When Candy shared that as one of her words too, I started thinking about what that would look like for me. And I thought of loyalty as an external expression, but I loved how yours were internal. Also, like to the values and the ideas. And I think that's why this exercise can be so valuable, to really understand who we are, what's important to us, and like what like what comes up for us like inside versus like how we want to express that externally. And I also love that your scoring has such a range. So there are certain things that you're doing really consistently and powerfully, and then you're also mindful of those areas of opportunities that you're thinking about and want to get better. So that was so great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, amazing. So let's jump to the next exercise, or the next part, I should say. And this is where we talk about passions. And this is also a bit abstract. So I hope this is valuable when we think about passions, because everyone talks about, there's things like just follow your passion, or do your passion, the money will come. And I think a lot of us don't really know what our passions are. I'll say, I was such a workaholic. I had no interests or hobbies outside of work. I was my job. And in marketing and advertising here in the US, it can be quite volatile. So I was actually let go 3 different times. And each time was such a blow to my ego and my self-worth and my identity. I honestly didn't know what to do next, other than just find another marketing job. But these questions, there's a few prompts that we'll go through next. And it's an attempt to think about your life with total freedom, like what creates more interest and excitement for you. And this may inform what you do next. This may inform your business. This may inform maybe a new hobby, or it may not give you any extra clarity at all. Like I'm super transparent about this next part, but I hope that it gives a chance to kind of like really drop in and think about the who you are. So when you think about the passions and your next actions, the reason why this is valuable is a few things. So the passion will give you more energy. It gives you more engagement, more enthusiasm, and that is palpable. So people can feel that from you. So people hire me, like on LinkedIn, for example, I think I only have 2 recommendations from actual people that I've coached. Most of my reviews sit on Upwork, but now I haven't really been active on Upwork for, I would say, 6 months or so, but now all my leads come from LinkedIn, and they don't really have a lot to go on. I need to update my website. I need to listen to my own advice. I need to update my website with testimonials, and I also need to ask for those testimonials. But when people speak to me and they meet me, I can't count how many people have said, I hired you because of obviously your experience, but really your energy. It's obvious that you're so passionate about what you do, and you're so enthusiastic about helping people understand who they are and then what their personal story is as it relates to a lot of the content strategy work that I do to help entrepreneurs and then also job seekers communicate their skills. So that's where this passion comes in. It's so important for yourself to stay internally inspired and motivated, but also when you connect with people in every interaction. And it's really a way for us to connect to our missions, and also kind of like build consensus or influence and persuasion when it comes to building an audience and building our business. So I lost the one moment, the presenter view where I can hit next. Okay, perfect. And this is actually on those notes. So hopefully these are a little repetitive, but I just wanted to reiterate the value of like understanding our passion. So they can re-energize us doing another task. When an experience drains us, we can create a new connection and camaraderie with others. So that's where like the chemistry aspect comes in. We can provide a productive outlet for our energy or stress. This is really interesting. Our passions, and when we execute against those, they can improve our memory, our mental health, and physical well-being. And it also allows our subconscious to work on a problem while we're focused on something else. So really what we're talking about today is total alignment of the who we are, the what we're doing, and also where our energy is coming from. And that's where our personal brand is the strongest and the most authentic. So for this next exercise, and this is the second to last exercise. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness and following this journey with me. This is where I'd love for you to think freely. So, what would you do if money wasn't an issue? What would you try if you couldn't fail? What type of work am I drawn to? What type of people am I drawn to? So you might be thinking about future clients, or future collaborations, and what types of stories always capture my attention. So as you've seen this theme about language and tone and storytelling, because whether you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, or in the corporate world and thinking about collaborations, or even a future job, you basically need to sell yourself. And the way you sell yourself is with the grabbing someone's attention and telling them your story. So all of these things are obviously very interconnected. So I'd love for us to just take 2 minutes again to think about these questions. I originally had 5 minutes, like one per question, but that might be a little long for us today. So make sure, I would just suggest that you capture down all the questions first, and then answer as many as you can in the 2 minutes, and then highly encourage you to come back to these, because this is an opportunity for you to think about what's truly important to you. And also, as you think about the next evolution of what you want to put your energy into next, either personally or professionally, this is a great exercise to do that. So with that, I'll set the timer again for 2 minutes, and I'm excited to have some shares after this as well. Thirty more seconds. Okay, amazing. Would anyone like to share any one of these questions? Just kind of like a random sampling. Feel free to post in the chat box, or if you want to share with us either vocally or also on video, would love to hear it. Do anyone feel like this exercise was hard? Was it hard to think about like what you really want? I know a lot of us are so focused on the doing and the work and the expectations and what we should be doing that sometimes feels really foreign and strange to think about what we really want.
I would absolutely love to hear what people would do if money weren't an issue.
Travel.
Yes.
Come on, guys. What would you do if money weren't an issue? We've all thought about this, right? Travel the world.
Yes.
I would probably travel and plan parties. Throw out some great.
I selfishly would, like, especially now because, you know, restaurants are closed, like I would hire a personal chef and I would just want someone to like make my food so I can be super healthy and nutritious and also not have to cook or do any of the dishes.
Now, see, I want
left
all the
all that
cupcakes.
stuff, Kelly. I'll come be your personal chef.
Perfect. Appreciate you.
Who's going to be the personal chef? I missed that.
That's Marley.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, open invitation to Portland, Oregon.
I have lots of friends there, so so it may be possible. It may be reality.
Okay, fantastic.
So we've
Can't
got
wait.
some answers in the chat. Take a year break and try to write a book. Ooh, what would you write a book about? That's exciting.
Well, interesting too, because I think we tell ourselves that we have to take a break to do what we want. And I would and I appreciate, work, life, family, it can be so overwhelming. But I will say, I personally had an idea for a children's book 4 years ago. And then 2 years ago, I finally went away for a day. Like I went on a personal retreat for a day and I had a book written in 6 hours. So it's amazing what we can do when we like focus and take the time for ourselves. So and anyone that thinks about writing a book, I just saw this. If anyone's familiar with Glennon Doyle, she's a best-selling author. She just released this book called Untamed, and she does on Instagram. She does these Monday morning meetings, and she said, if you think about writing, and you obviously think about writing a lot, you're meant to write. You're meant to be an author. So I'll just acknowledge you, Katrina, and forgive me, I think I'm definitely pronouncing your name wrong, that you should start writing and think about how you could do that without taking a year off, because it's so hard to take a full year break. But maybe there's something little you can do, each week, each month, or even just a day, example, similar to like what I did personally. Any other shares? Should we keep going? Because I want to be mindful of time too. I want to make sure we have time for more Q&A also. So great. I will say, keep thinking about what's important to you and what you do for yourself. If you had less restrictions, and then the goal really here is to think about how to take that next action. So I'd love for you to kind of like capture down this model. So coming out of those questions, and please complete the ones that you didn't have a chance to complete with us today. But think about 3 things that you want to commit to doing that align with your values and your passions. And what's one small thing you can do tomorrow? What's maybe one little bigger thing that you can do next week? And what's one big thing that you could have complete by next month? And the goal here is, we have a lot of ideas and opportunities, but when we don't hold ourselves accountable, they obviously never happen. So for example, like I've been wanting to update my website since January. It is now May and I haven't done that yet. So my commitment is by the end of next month, I will have my new website updated with testimonials. I'm going to be removing my marketing consulting content and information because that's not where I want to be spending my time and energy. I want to be 100% focusing as a coach, and that's what I've been doing, but I use the marketing background to add credibility, and I felt like I had to, because I was suffering from imposter syndrome, which is like a whole separate conversation. But I just encourage you to pick 3 things and set deadlines for yourself and hold yourself accountable, because that's like, we can't ask that of our clients if we're not in integrity with ourselves. And then, so we'll jump to the last part 3. So the grounding. So the intent is to kind of like really bring this all together. So once you clarify your unique strengths and your values and your passions, you can create this beautiful, great direction and criteria for what to say yes to and what to say no to. And so that's, again, how we're in integrity with ourselves and our truth. And when we do that, then we can show up more strongly and more authentically for others. And we know in a world where, especially as busy as we are, I imagine all of us might feel busier than ever, even though we're in quarantine, because we're having so many more conversations on video. And I'm a person that tends to say an automatic yes. And I'm now trying to be more thoughtful about my time and energy and where I can say no. And saying no can be hard and it doesn't feel good, maybe for yourself or for the other people. But I will say that no's can be powerful. And there's, of course, a right way to do that with diplomacy and kindness. But it's so important for you to really understand who you are, what's important to you, and then how that translates into how you show up at work and in life. And saying yes and no on a regular basis in small and big ways is a huge, huge part of this. So when we think about the strengths, that directly then correlates to your skills, like your amazing talents that you have, how you uniquely deliver, a work product. Maybe it's a tangible or even intangible. And then as a potential entrepreneur or business owner or solopreneur like myself, like those can correlate to your services and what you offer people. And then your values is like, those are all the things that were really important to you. So those then can correlate to the yes, I want to work with this client, or no, I don't want to work on that project. Do you see how those values can quickly help you line up on what's going to be most meaningful to you? And yes, we sometimes say projects that we don't want to do because if money becomes the priority. As long as there's an awareness of like why you're saying yes and why you're saying no, that's just as important. And then your passions are really that superpower. So we have to tap into what we're exceptional at, where that energy comes from, because that's where it again becomes palpable and people will sense that from you. And that's where that'll set you apart from others. So this is like just a rearticulation actually of what I just shared. So the strengths are the what you offer and how you articulate it. The values can be the who you serve and the how to connect with them. And the passions are how to inspire yourself and motivate others. So it's inspiring, motivating yourself and others. So just to make this a little more tangible, I kind of put together this slide using myself as an example, since you've kind of gotten to know me a little bit. So my strengths are communication. I've always been a great communicator. My background was in client service. So I constantly had to, especially in email, I had to constantly like respond to and have tough conversations, both in person and in writing. I wasn't necessarily a creative, like a designer or a copywriter, but I was a very creative field. I love coming up with new ideas, how to package information, how to present it. So very creative and from those angles. And then I love making people feel good about themselves. Like I consider, someone else told me when I was trying to figure out how, when I first started my business, am I a career coach? Am I a job search strategist? And I was kind of explaining what I was doing. And it was actually another coach. And he's like, it sounds like you're a confidence builder. I'm like, wow, I would have never thought that. So those are things that I do that are important to me and that I do exceptionally well. And then my values are authenticity, transparency, and approachability. So I'm very honest and open, and I'm a very authentic person. Like I'm very true to who I am and how I'm feeling. I then communicate that externally to the people that I meet and my clients about like what I know and what I don't know. And then I want to make sure people feel, I want people to feel this like warmth and comfort in talking to me and this approachability, because what I do, I've been told sometimes my work, it feels like therapy. People have to like really share like who they are and what's important to them and what they're worried about. So I can craft the proper story that again is like, it's more, there's more depth to it. There's more substance. That way you can build an emotional personal connection online, like in LinkedIn, for example. And my passion is as it relates to emotional intelligence. Like I really want to understand people, like who they are, what makes them tick, all the layers of a person, because we're super complex. And I want to understand what they're saying and doing, maybe just through body language. Maybe like they're not saying something, but I can pick up on the fact that there's more to the story. And then of course that storytelling aspect. So I love storytelling. I hope to be a writer someday, a published author. Right now I'm like helping people write their profiles and their resumes. And I love understanding what someone's doing with their life and what they've achieved and articulating that for them. Which then brings me to ultimately my purpose. Like this is very much something that I'm meant to be doing as a career coach and as a personal brand consultant. And it really just brings all these, these things naturally together. So none of this, as you might pick up on, is, like I said, it's this process of kind of like this unpacking and then this relayering, and all of it's very natural. It's organic. And that's why I've been able to build a successful business quickly that's been sustainable, because all of these things are natural to who I am and how I connect with people and what my personal brand is out in the world, what people historically had already known about me. and working with me or getting to know me, and then now I'm doing it in a professional capacity. So I know a lot of you were thinking about like how can this impact your business right away, and I imagine you might have been possibly hoping for more like specific to-dos as it relates to building a social media following or having a specific content strategy. And I'll just say all those things are the next steps as far as like what you want to do, you know, for yourself, for your business. But I really wanted to focus our time today on like going deeper and just getting that realignment, getting crystal clear on who we are and what's important to us, so we can then show up in our lives and work consistently. So next steps for you are thinking about how to refresh your personal brand. So of course you can just keep being, you know, the beautiful person that you are and showing up consistently, but it also comes down to how you want to communicate that. So when you think about online, that could be in LinkedIn or social channel. On paper, kind of quote unquote on paper, that could be in all your email communications or your case studies, or the information and the proposals that you're sharing with potential clients, or maybe a presentation that you're building for your internal team. And then in person, of course, as it relates to likely right now virtual meetings. But what's your energy when you're on Zoom? What's your body language? What pace are you talking? How are you talking? How articulate are you being? All of these things correlate to your personal brand. So I encourage you to think about these things, and you know what's most important to you. It can be overwhelming to think about, how do I change what I want to change? But I'll say like every little step matters. And as long as you just check in with yourself about like, am I being truthful to who I am and what's important to me? And also being truthful to like what I promised, you know, this client, and being in integrity with them, then that's like fantastic. So next, I wanted to jump through a few online examples of profiles I've worked on, and how this can all kind of like come together as far as the articulation of a personal brand quickly, because that's the goal. Is like when someone's evaluating if they want to work with you or not, you want to create emotional connection, a personal connection quickly, and then hopefully have the conversation continue. So this example, I worked with a gentleman that works at eBay, and he is, this example here, he says, my laugh might be loud, and my laugh is loud and contagious, but that's not all I'm known for. I'm a trusted advisor to C-suite, driving new product strategies and global growth. So it's how he shows up with people. He focuses on product strategies, and then of course he's focused on global growth, and at PayPal, which eBay owns. So for the sake of time, thank you, Candy, for the little reminder, because I want to save time for questions. I'll probably actually jump to this. I'll just do this one. I can skip over the other two. But this is Andrew, the one of the testimonials that I shared. He's an entrepreneur, has his own business, and he wanted to get more clients. So I helped him understand his skill set and how to articulate what makes him unique. So here in the About section, just quick note, you can only have 120 characters before you have to expand to see more. So if there's one takeaway, those 120 characters on LinkedIn are critical to build a connection and quickly communicate who you are. So for Andrew, it's through a special blend of technical know-how and human-centered design, I bring ideas to life. It takes empathy, curiosity, and a spirit of invention on top of great technical skills to change the human experience. That's who I am and what I do. Nice to meet you. So we'll bypass these other examples just for the sake of time, because I want to make sure we can address any questions. And this is ultimately, you know, the recap where we started, bringing it full circle. So your personal brand is your reputation, your calling card. It's how you show up, and it's what you want to be known for. So with that, I know, Candy, you've already posted kind of like how people can reach out or talk to me. So I'd love to kind of like, segue to any additional thoughts and questions that's on your mind that we can like brainstorm on together quickly. And then again, available for any conversations after the fact.
Kelly, this is Marley. I guess I do have a question, like back to the LinkedIn profiles and that About section. Do you have kind of a formula that you use to communicate those strengths and values, or is each one bespoke?
Yeah, it's a great question. I will say what I do is when I work with clients, I always ask them to think about basically the exercise that we did, like their values and their strengths, like how would they describe themselves personally and professionally to articulate that? Because I think that first 120 characters should do both. So the goal is that to be a bit of a hybrid of like what you're exceptional at and the who you are. And then what I often then do, and so it's somewhat formulaic, but it's definitely, I do it custom based on each individual client, is then talk about the what you're doing now or the what's important to you. So build immediately credibility for what you want to be known for. And then you want to build on that credibility by saying, and this is what I was up to before.
Okay.
And then you can then jump and go to, and like, and here's how, like, if you, sometimes I say always open to new connections or always open to new collaborations, or, you know, however you want that close to be, it's really conversational. So you can definitely check out my profile, and, you know, I'd be happy to share some additional examples and you'll see like they're inconsistent because I'm really true to that person's objective and tone. So tone's so important. So some profiles are more professional, which require like a more stricter structure, I'll say. And then some are way more conversational and playful. So it's like a more natural, and there's more storytelling that happens.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, sure thing. Any other questions?
I feel like we need to bring you back on at some point to talk about building our LinkedIn profiles. You sound like you have a lot of experience with that.
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to have a separate session just on LinkedIn, and it won't be, this is actually, it was great because this was longer than I anticipated. I mean, it's because I actually talked slowly for the first time maybe ever. But LinkedIn itself is it's a beast, but it's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's intimidating, but isn't really. So it's simpler than it seems. But the biggest part, the most important part for, especially an entrepreneur, I'll say, is the bio, communicating the who you are, what makes you different. So some of that, like we talked about, the whole kind of objective here is the who are you and so what. So that so what is oftentimes like hard for us to communicate, as well as the who we are.
Yeah, the audience here that's joined us tonight is a lot from Tbilisi itself, or Georgians. And Georgians don't tend, from my experience anyway, Georgians don't tend to actually utilize their LinkedIn at all. So I think that's a potential for those Georgian entrepreneurs to actually reach a greater worldwide market, is by learning about LinkedIn, and obviously personal branding first. You got to get the brand and figure out what you're doing there first. But I feel like LinkedIn is a missed opportunity for a lot of Georgians that they don't see as being an opportunity.
Okay, super interesting. Yeah, I know there's such saturation here in the US, and they obviously have a global footprint, and they're working on, you know, they have like global offices all over the world, and they're working on the expansion of that. But is there a professional network that's available in Georgia that's more readily used, or is it just more social media is kind of like the more norm?
You know, I'm not sure. I would love for anybody that could answer that to actually answer that. Most businesses here in Georgia operate on Facebook, almost exclusively on Facebook. Some of them, some of the local businesses don't even have websites. But if anybody knows of any place like that that Georgians are utilizing, let me know. I'm curious as well. So
yeah, that'd be good for me to know if we do do that separate session, because I want to do some research on what people are currently using, because I wouldn't be familiar with that just yet.
Absolutely. Anybody have questions? Sorry, I didn't mean to like butt in there.
Yeah, no worries. Well, if anything comes up for anyone, if you want to message me on LinkedIn, let's definitely all get connected. And then you have my email as well. I just want to say thank you for joining the session and working through the exercises with me, and Candy for inviting me to meet your community. And I love what you're doing in Georgia, and I am wholeheartedly sincere in saying that I would love to come, if not this year, absolutely next year.
Would love to have you here. Maybe we can do a session in person when you make it to the city. Just real quickly before we go, Kelly, tell us what services you actually provide. You told us a little bit about your history, and we know how to get a hold of you. And I'm sorry, I'm like sitting in the dark now. I didn't realize it'd gotten so dark out here. But tell us just briefly about the services that you provide.
Yeah, sure. So as a personal brand consultant, I basically have a boot camp. So kind of like that 3-week course as it relates to these exercises, the abbreviated version that we did today to help people understand what their personal brand is. But I would say the majority of my business relates to job search strategy. So people that are looking to level up in their career and move and get a new job and get promoted. Or maybe just change industry. So I help with their full content strategy. So resume writing, LinkedIn profile optimization, cover letter writing. I also help with interview preparation, like how you show up, in video meetings and in the room, and then salary negotiation. So anything related to a job search. So an aspect of career coaching, and then of course this like everything as it relates to here, the personal branding. So more niche. There's like aspects of each that I really focus on, and it's been really great because I'm like I said, I'm transparent. I don't try to be all things to all people, especially as it comes to career coaching, because there's so many different types of career coaches out there, and I do really focus on the job search strategy.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If anybody does have questions, I posted how to get a hold of Kelly in the comments. It's also on the Facebook event, or just message me if you can't find it. I'm happy to connect you. I'm sure she's excited to chat with any of you that are interested. And yeah, I'm got a hard stop in 3 minutes, so we've got game night tonight. If anybody's interested in virtual games, we're doing game night tonight just after this. So we got our professional development. Now it's time to grab a beer and get social.
I love it.
So,
so great.
What was that?
Thank you. I just said thank you.
Oh, thanks guys for showing up.
Thank you. Great to meet you, everyone.
All right.
Have
Bye,
a great
everybody.
evening and week. Take care. Bye.